Hey everyone, welcome back. Stacker here. In today's numismatic news and information for the 7th day of May 2023, I'd like to welcome you over to JM Bullion so we can look at those spot prices, well, at least where they ended on Friday. We're also going to be looking at the inventory for the American Eagles for 2023 and the premiums on those said Eagles. So also want to give a huge shout out and a big thank you to all of our channel members. Really appreciate all y'all. And if you do dig the content that I'm dropping every single day, please consider joining. It's $1.99 a month. I think that's less than 7 cents per day. Now, JM Bullion. Looks like gold ended the week at $20.29.73, above that $2,000 mark. Silver at $25.93, right? Well above that $25 mark. Platinum at $10.70 at 21, well above the $1,000 mark. And palladium at $15.45.21. There you go. Look at that. Credit card PayPal payment for the American Silver Eagles. Yep, look at the difference here. That's a premium of $22.94. And they are in stock, and it ships within 1 business day of a clear payment. And I think that's amazing because it's always nice to get, well, your stuff in hand quicker than, well, sooner than later. Now, over here to the United States Mint. This is the bullion sales. Sales totals by month are updated every weekday by 5 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, we don't have any new tale to tell for April, and we're a week into May already. But look at this. We had 900,000 American Silver Eagles for February, 900,000 for March, and 900,000 for April. Honestly, folks, when I'm seeing this, I'd say that's definitely a trend, and this should be addressed by the United States Mint or maybe an inquiry by the House of Representatives, Congress, or even the Senate, right? So something should be done, at least to find out why they're capping production. Now, over here to thehill.com, this is an opinion piece by Desmond Lackman. Actually, the U.S. can default on its debt. I thought this was really interesting. The picture with all the dollars in the background, the Congress there with the flag at half staff. This is a really good article. It's pretty interesting. And I wanted to read to you really the most important takeaways here. And it's something that I think we're going to be talking about here probably for the next 3 weeks. They're probably going to be talking about using the 14th Amendment. They're probably going to be talking about that $1 trillion coin and maybe some other unorthodox rules or regulations could come up, right? So here we go. It says, as the country heads towards a debt ceiling showdown later this summer, I think that's June 1st, a dangerous idea is gaining currency. Look at that word, a dangerous idea. Gosh, woo! They're already framing this one, aren't they? It is that the U.S. Constitution, whoops, there we go. That's an old piece of paper, right? That some people think that's meaningless. Makes debt default impossible. It's a dangerous idea to think that the Constitution doesn't make the debt default impossible. Okay. This idea risks breeding. Oh, complacency. Wow, they're breeding now. There's more of it. I tell you, the words people use, I tell you, among our politicians about the economic and financial market, dangers associated with the debt ceiling standoff that lie ahead. Wow, danger ahead. Look at this paragraph. It's loaded with those words. It's amazing. What a word salad. The essence of the idea is that the 14th Amendment to the Constitution unequivocally states that the validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law shall not be questioned. There you go. Shut up about it. I don't even know what that means. If the debt ceiling were breached, so the idea goes, the government would be forced to prioritize debt service payment over the regular government expenditures to avoid default. It would have no option but to cut back on its other spending to generate the necessary resources to do so. There you go. And they're just basically going to pick and choose, prioritize, okay, who they're going to pay and who they're not going to pay. Now, it says here, all is well with the idea, except for one thing. Since 1866, pick up 6, when the 14th Amendment was adopted, the United States government has defaulted on its debt obligations not once, not twice, but at least 3 different times. And I'll show you more than that, folks. The most notable of these debt defaults occurred, well, I think it's in 1932, when President Franklin Roosevelt took us off the U.S. gold standard during the Great Depression. The White House, Congress, and the Supreme Court agreed to wipe out around 40% of U.S. private and public debt. What? And could they do that again, folks? Absolutely. The U.S. government did so by simply refusing to redeem its gold bonds into gold coins. Instead, the government repaid its gold bond obligations with depreciated currency. Here you go. Here's some paper for you. A more recent example of the U.S. government reneging on its debt commitments occurred in August 1971, when then-President Nixon temporarily, in parentheses, because you know it's not temporary, closed the U.S. gold window as part of his effort to regain control over inflation. By closing the gold window, the U.S. government abrogated, that means shirked their duties and obligations, right? A financial commitment it had made to the rest of the world at the Bretton Woods Conference in 1944 that set a post-war monetary system. Whoops. Yikes. Yeah, they just said not going to do it. So they've done it to the United States in 1932, to their own people, and then in the world in 1971. All right, now think about that. Think about that. That's pretty intense. At the Bretton Woods in 1944, the United States had promised to redeem all U.S. dollars held for $35 an ounce, right? When Nixon refused to let foreign central banks turn in their dollars for gold, he had effectively defaulted on the United States' long-standing obligations to make the dollar as good as gold. And what happened after that, folks, in the 70s? Yeah, tremendous. There was gas lines. It was just an economic, you know what. And it took some time to get out of until Reagan in the early 80s. That was tough. A more recent, albeit lesser example, the U.S. government reneging on its debt commitments occurred in 1968 when the government refused to honor its explicit promise to redeem its silver certificate paper dollars for silver dollars. Oh, yeah. I wonder how many of us in this hobby would, have silver certificates and would love to pick those silver certificates up and take them right to the bank for real deal silver. When an embarrassingly large number of bearers of these certificates demanded the promised silver dollars, the U.S. government simply decided not to pay. So in 1932 and in 1968, they were like, yeah, just pound sand, rookie, take a lap, When the U.S. government's, with the U.S. government's far from unblemished credit record, domestic and especially foreign investors can be forgiven for entertaining at least some doubt about the protection afforded to them by the U.S. Constitution. This perhaps explains why in 2011, at the time of the last major U.S. debt ceiling showdown, U.S. and global financial markets crumbled as U.S. politicians played a game of chicken in approving an increase in the debt ceiling. Now, folks, are they going to increase the debt ceiling come June 1st? I don't know. It is something that we should be talking about absolutely every single day until it happens. Now, here we go. This is from 4 days ago, and this is, I put the validity of the public debt of the United States shall not be questioned, and then bam, this popped up. Could Biden avert a debt default by using the 14th Amendment? Remember, it was a dangerous idea not to think that it was possible, and it set up the dangers that lie ahead, right? Oh boy, all that loaded language. So let's keep on keeping on. Let's find out what's what. This is Find Law, constitution.findlaw.com. Title of this article is The 14th Amendment's Public Debt Clause, and it is legally reviewed by Laura Tem, Esquire, last reviewed July 29, 2022, less than a year ago. It says here the 14th Amendment's primary purpose was to help reconstruction efforts following the Civil War. It granted citizenship to all people born in the United States, but most importantly, former enslaved persons. Plus, it aimed to ensure states could not create laws that infringed on the rights of African Americans. Some portions of the amendment became legal oddities, including the Public Debt Clause. That's what we're talking about today, folks. Like the Apportionment Clause, the Public Debt Clause was likely intended to prevent Congress from forgiving debts incurred by Union states, but because the clause was written, is incredibly broad, it could have a bigger impact on our lives today. Now, here's what it says. And I'm just going to read the highlighted portion. The validity of the public debt of the United States, authorized by law, shall not be questioned. There you go. I mean, that's just pretty cut and dry. But check this out. This is also pretty cut and dry, too. But it also says the United States, nor any state, shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred of aid, of insurrection, or rebellion against the United States. And those claims and obligations should be held illegal and void. What? Who's going to pay somebody who's trying to overthrow them? That's just wild. Anyway, I'm going to leave a link in the description for this, but here's the bottom line, almost literally, all right? In recent years, the 14th Amendment's public debt clause, has been proposed as a method for a president to raise the nation's debt ceiling without approval from Congress. However, legal scholars are split on whether such a move would survive a challenge in the courts, and no president has actually done it. So there you go. I think they're setting up the case here with this article and with this news here that the 14th Amendment will be used to circumvent Congress' authority on the debt ceiling. There you go. And what does that even mean for gold and silver and numismatics and copper and other industrial metals, right? Well, let's keep on keeping on because this gets even better. Now, this is a brief history of U.S. defaults, and this is from January 16, 2013 by Uwe. And I'm just going to read some of the more intense parts of the 33 default. This takes us to Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1932. Much like President Obama, Roosevelt found the economy in shambles. He, too, had to take a lot of emergency action, some orthodox, others not so much. One of the more unorthodox actions related to U.S. government bonds issued many years earlier. In 1917, after ending World War I, the U.S. Congress passed the First and Second Liberty Bond Acts. And the fact, it is the second Liberty Bond Act right there that is widely considered the legislative root of today's debt ceiling. And that's what they should look to talk about debt ceiling. This measure allowed U.S. Treasury to issue long-term and short-term debt up to a certain limit. Now, what happens if they do not fulfill all those obligations? They can't issue any more long and short-term debt. That would be everything right there. No, so rather than seeking, as was previously required, specific congressional authorization for each borrowing transaction. Here, and I'll leave a link in the description for this article too. This is so intense, folks, and I think that we're going to be seeing a lot of this in the news upcoming, for the next, 3 weeks or so? Yeah. Now, I've asked the Google machine here, what happens to gold and silver in a debt default? Well, this was the answer. Will gold go up if U.S. debt or U.S. defaults on debt? How does the debt ceiling affect gold? Well, here's the answer from, looks like, Gold Price Forecast. They might be a little biased, but it says here, debt ceiling and gold. Gold is considered a hedge against political and economic uncertainty. Therefore, many analysts believe that the debt ceiling crisis is positive for gold prices by default. After all, when the debt approaches the ceiling, the Treasury cannot issue new bonds. Folks, they can't issue new bonds, and they're, oh boy, yeah, not good. Not good at all. But what if you can't afford gold or silver, folks? What do you do? Well, look at this. This is an article from March 30, updated April 2, 2022. And it says here, hoarding nickels. Why its value could be tied to Russia-Ukraine crisis. Remember, we've talked about hoarding nickels, right? This is a big deal. This is a very big deal. And I will leave a link in the description for this one as well. I like nickels. In fact, nickels, you can't, like if your house catches fire and burns down, I imagine the nickels would still be there. I imagine if a thief came to your house, imagine he would probably have to make a lot of trips to take those nickels out of the house or out of the safe, right? That'd be a really heavy proposition. But either way, it's up to you. What do you want to do? But I thought that was pretty cool. Also, check this out. Bam! Now, this is copper. And something new came out, and these are copper aerospike rocket engines. And the future of rocketry could easily be these copper aerospike rocket engines. They are so efficient, and they're AI designed and created, something that the human mind couldn't possibly think about. That's incredible. Now, let's head over to those plus ones today. This is Proverbs 6, 1 through 2. It says, my child, if you've been a guarantor for your friend, if you have given your handshake for a stranger, you have been trapped by the words of your mouth. That means you gotta fulfill that obligation, right? And it's interesting about the debt default and the words of your mouth. You're trapped, and you have to fulfill your obligations, right? That's Proverbs. That's the Bible saying that you have to fulfill your obligations. But we've just read a bunch of stories, right, that really are not about fulfilling those obligations, right? Yikes! Wow. So that's not very righteous, is it? Not really righteous. Now, what I think that means is that even when doing good deeds, consider all possible consequences before committing yourself to others. And if you can't wrap your head around this, I tried to myself. And I can only think of the movie Lord of the Rings. I don't know if it was Two Towers or whatever, but it was either Merry or Pippin. I think it was Pippin. He gave himself to the king. He's like, yeah, I'll be in your service. And he meant to be doing a good deed, but dang, dude. Poor choice. Obligating yourself to that king. Or he wasn't even a king. He was like the steward, wasn't he? Either way, he was not the best. But what is the best is 3 9's fine. 999 KOIN Coin News Radio. This is Led Zeppelin, Kashmir. And it's got that full-bodied sound right there. 1080p. And that's awesome. Hope you enjoy, folks. Hope you enjoy your Sunday. I'm Stacker. And listen, I think we have an auction tonight at about 5 p.m. Hope to see you there. Stacker out.